There are three things that all healthy relationships have. And without any one of these three things, a relationship will fail on some level. Now, obviously, there can be so many things that we attribute to having a healthy and successful relationship, but I really do believe that these three things are the key ingredients for a healthy marriage, and everything else is just the cherry on top. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about safety, trust, and respect. Those are the foundations of any healthy relationship, and especially a marriage. Hello everybody at OKclarity. My name is Michali Friedman. I'm the director of Embrace Therapy, and I am very excited to come here today to talk to you about the foundation of successful relationships. Now, for those of you who have listened to some of my other lives, I am somewhere else. I'm actually by the beach writing my book, and whoever's joining tonight, you guys get to see a little bit of a preview of some of the things that I'm going to be talking about in my book on this topic of foundation of successful relationships. We did get a few questions that I have right over here, and we will answer those questions. And if we have time at the end, then I'd be happy to answer any questions that people have during this live. Welcome everybody. Okay. So let's talk about this topic of the foundation of successful relationships. There are three things that all healthy relationships have. And without any one of these three things, a relationship will fail on some level. Now, obviously, there can be so many things that we attribute to having a healthy and successful relationship, but I really do believe that these three things are the key ingredients for a healthy marriage, and everything else is just the cherry on top. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about safety, trust, and respect. Those are the foundations of any healthy relationship, and especially a marriage. Someone just asked, in general or marriage? Yeah, these three things need to exist in a relationship, but especially when it comes to a marriage cannot survive without them. I want to just briefly define what each of these three things are, and then we'll dive into some of the questions. And this, by the way, is an overview. I always like to say that in my lives because I think it's important to know that there's so much more information on these topics out there. So safety, a lot of us, when we think about safety, we think, oh, I'm safe, I'm not in danger, right? So our association of safety is an absence of danger. An absence of danger. But I really don't like to think of safety like that, because I think safety is so much more than just the absence of something. I think it's also the presence of something positive. And I think that that safety involves an absence of threat or danger, and also the presence of someone caring for our well-being. When I share something personal with you, I feel safe when I know that you have my back and that you are going to protect that information, and that you are interested in my well-being and invested in my well-being, right? So it's really not just the negative, it's also like the absence of negative, it's also the positive. And this is a really important foundational element in a healthy relationship, because if I don't feel a sense of safety with somebody else, then I'm not going to be sharing my entire self with that person. And that person is going to miss out on all the wonderful things that I offer. And also the relationship itself, when it lacks that vulnerability, it's going to lack closeness and intimacy. So that's why safety is super important for any relationship. Now, I'm not just talking about physical safety. Physical safety is 100% a must in any relationship. If we don't feel safe physically safe in a relationship, then it's really important that we get ourselves to a place of safety. I'm also talking about emotional safety, where I can share myself with another without any threat of emotional harm to myself, and that person is also going to cherish what I share, and they're going to care about and hold dear to themselves what I've shared. Okay, so that's the first part, safety. Then we get to trust. And I actually talk about this in my book. I don't know if anyone here has ever done one of those like trust falls in like those like ropes courses where like you have like a class standing and you are supposed to just like fall from somewhere high up and allow everybody to catch you. And I don't know about you guys, but I always hated trust falls because I was lacking so much information about the people that were supposed to catch me, right? I didn't know if they can carry my weight. I didn't know if they have the muscles to do that. I didn't know if they care enough about me that they're gonna really make sure to not hurt me and to not catch me. There was so much that I didn't know. So I couldn't take that leap, and I couldn't risk myself and my well-being without knowing what those people were capable of doing, without knowing if they were capable of catching me. And that's really what trust is. Trust is not about blindly believing that people are going to have our backs. It's something that needs to be earned and cultivated with time. Now, in any relationship, there are going to be micro hurts and betrayals that we may experience where we're going to have to recalibrate and rebuild that trust. So, and what I mean by that is in any relationship, if let's say someone hurts us unintentionally, there's some level of betrayal and shock to it, right? Where it's like, I can't believe you just said that to me, right? And in that way, when we feel wounded, emotionally wounded in that way, there's a tiny bit of trust that then needs to be restored. And in that way, trust is really like a spectrum where we can increase our trust in people and we can decrease our trust in people. And the reason that trust also is really important, similar to safety, is because we need to know in any relationship, and then again, especially in a marriage, that the person that we are in a relationship with is going to catch us if we fall, that they do have our backs, and that we are not going to get hurt by putting our well-being in their hands from time to time. It also, I just want to note over here that there's this idea of trusting ourselves too, right? Where we can lose trust in ourselves and we can build and cultivate trust in ourselves. That's where integrity comes in. Integrity means I'm doing what I said I'm going to be doing. And we need that trust in ourselves in order to be able to trust another person in a relationship and to be trustworthy to that person. So it really goes both ways. Now, the last element of this foundation is respect, which means that I regard the other person with a certain level of esteem. I think that they have parts of them or qualities about them that I really admire and appreciate and learn from and benefit from. And those qualities inspire me to be a better version of myself. And in any relationship, it's important to have respect because we are interacting with that person pretty frequently, especially in a marriage. And if we think about, some of the functions and purposes of a relationship, it's to really enable us to live our lives and to also be the best versions of ourselves. And the way that we can do that with our spouses is if we are living with people that we appreciate their opinions and they appreciate our opinions, we cherish their beliefs and their values, and they cherish our values, and we have that mutual respect. Respect also extends, by the way, to boundaries, right? I know what I need, what I want, what I say yes to, what I say no to, and that is respected by my spouse. And I know those things about my spouse, and I respect their boundaries as well. It's also acknowledging that I have my limits, that I'm like a finite being, and recognizing that the other person has their, we call them Dalit Amos, right? And really respecting that they're their own entities. And that's also a part of what it means to respect our spouses. So the reason that these are considered the foundations to a healthy relationship, and again, especially a marriage, is because without one of them, an entire relationship crumbles. Now, oftentimes in my work as a couples therapist, I get couples coming in asking like, okay, how can we increase the appreciation in our relationship? Or how can we build the friendship in our relationship? Or we never have enough time together, or we don't go out on dates enough. I get those types of presenting issues sometimes. And those are beautiful goals and important goals, but they cannot exist if there is safety, trust, and respect missing. So just like an actual foundation of a house, we had the privilege of watching a house getting built across the street from us. And it took so much time for the builders to build the foundation. And it was really pretty invisible, right? It's like underground. And when people look at a foundation that's being built, it's not pretty, it's not exciting. But at the same time, it's so necessary. If we didn't have that foundation to our homes and we just built a pretty house with nicely painted brick, and we worked really hard on the interior design, if there was a snowstorm or a rainstorm, then the entire house can come crashing down. So even though the foundation's invisible and it's not exciting or entirely connected, that's what's needed in order to build a beautiful, solid home. So once we get that foundation in place, that's when we can start to work on appreciation and connection and friendship and intimacy. Those three things have to be addressed and cultivated first. So that's my spiel on the foundation of successful relationships. Now I'm just gonna go turn over here to see what some of the questions are. Okay, so question number 1. Really close with my cousin. I'm really happy that she's getting married. At the same time, it's hard that she won't be there for me as much. How can I cope? By the way, a lot of the questions I'm getting are about relationship type of questions. So I'm gonna come up with a way of tying it into some of the things that we've talked about. So I think that this person may be carrying an assumption that they cannot hold two feelings at the same time. And they may be feeling ashamed of the fact that they're having a hard time. And the first thing I would want to say is in any relationship, it's so important to bring yourself to the relationship and not just a glorified version of you. And you can say in a respectful way to your cousin that you're holding those two feelings, that you are at the same time feeling so deeply happy and thrilled that she's getting married, and at the same time you're scared. You're wondering how you're going to manage without her being so involved in your life. And maybe together, when you put those feelings on the table, you can brainstorm of how to ensure that your cousin will still be a part of your life. And just to even have your cousin acknowledge that, yeah, things are changing, things are a little bit different, and to sit with that. Allowing your cousin, trusting your cousin to have that information and to show up for you is part of a healthy relationship. Now, I don't know your cousin and I don't know you, so I don't know if you do have that foundation intact or if there are some cracks in the foundation that need tending to. But if we're assuming that your foundation is intact, then I would suggest having that conversation with your cousin, emphasizing that you're so thrilled and happy for your cousin, and sharing some of your struggle. Okay, question number 2. How to know when to share something that hurt you in a relationship? Would your advice be different in a marriage and close friendship? So I think that, my general rule, and I'm emphasizing general because anything that I say on social media, it's not a one size fits all, and you're the expert of you, and you really have to know kind of what's best for you. I'm just working with very limited information. But I would say that in any relationship that matters to you, it's important to be vulnerable and to share your whole self. And if there is that safety in the relationship. And so if you feel hurt and it's not something that you can forgive or get past, then I think it's important to bring it up. And my advice would not be different for a marriage or a close friendship. My advice would really be the same, that communication is really key. Now, knowing how to communicate in an assertive way, meaning not an aggressive or passive-aggressive way, is a whole other skill set. But I would say learning, bringing your hurt to this person and problem solving and working together to figure it out and to get to resolution is part of what can make that relationship even closer, because you are working together to deepen your relationship. And you're also teaching that person how you want to be treated by creating a boundary and sharing your hurt. Okay, the next question is, are there specific building blocks one can learn and practice for healthy relationships? Yes, so this is exactly what I'm talking about. Learning how to cultivate safety, trust, and respect. And I think that, for those of you who don't have a marital status, right, as married, I think that there's still so many opportunities to learn how to cultivate a sense of safety, trust, and respect, because this exists in any relationship. If someone is not emotionally safe, or someone's not trustworthy, or you have a hard time being trustworthy, these are things that you can work on right now. I mean, it's so common that, one of the things I hear all the time is like, especially with like teenagers or even younger that may be close to one of their parents, is that their friends may tell them something in confidence, and then like their let's say mother knows everything, without the friend giving permission to disclose that information. Or, some people share everything with their spouses without getting permission from their friends to share that with their spouses. So understanding how you define trustworthiness and really looking at that, I think, can be really, really important for any relationship. I think safety, trust, and respect, cultivating those skills, are the building blocks for a healthy relationship. Okay, I see someone just wrote a comment here. My 9-year-old daughter just went through cancer. I, as a mother, lost 2 close friends. They just stopped being there for me. Things are hard for me and awkward when I see them. I'm so angry. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing. I'm like at a loss for words, just trying to imagine what your experience must have been as the mother of such a young child going through something so absolutely terrifying. I don't know, like, if your daughter's in remission, if she's okay. I'm hoping that you have therapeutic support and just different support groups, because in general, to raise children, we need a village, but it's kind of like a kal vachomer, like how much more so we need a village when we're going through something like this. Now, I think that, crises are funny in some ways, because we really, they say, like, you learn who your friends are when you are going through a crisis, and the ones that stick by you and really see you and get your struggles and get your limitations and get your strengths and appreciate you in those moments are true friends. And I think at the same time, I don't know who these friends are, and I cannot even imagine how much abandonment you must have been feeling not having them there with you. And I get that it can be so infuriating if you see them, because it's just like, where were you? I was going through the worst experience of my life. Where were you? I think if you have the kind of relationship and if you have the strength, I don't know where you're at in your process, but it might be helpful to confront them if they were close friends, and if you feel like they're healthy enough, and say, it was really, really hard for me. Like, I went through this whole thing, and I know that my availability has changed, and my ability to show up to our friendship has shifted, because my whole focus has been on saving my daughter's life. But I just want to share with you that I'm feeling really abandoned. I really needed you there, and I understand if you have your own limitations, but this was something that I really needed. And seeing how they respond. I'm not saying that this is something you have to do. And again, I don't know how much energy you have to devote to this, but I would say, in addition to that, to also bear in mind that people respond to crises in so many different ways. And sometimes our closest people can pull away because they feel awkward, or they are just so devastated for us and they have no idea how to show up. And it's not because they're malicious, and it's not because they're selfish, and it's not because they're uncaring. It's because they're clueless, and they just don't know. And that doesn't justify the abandonment and the anger that you feel. It just might explain a little bit of some of the potential realities that might be existing here. I don't know, but that's why having a conversation can be helpful. Again, in the right time, if you're up for it. But I would say if you're not up for it, then to explore, people that can be your village during this crisis. And I just hope that your daughter, I think that a lot of times in different relationships, we do carry a sense of betrayal and a sense of like, hey, you were supposed to be there for me. Kind of like Sue Johnson's thing, like, are you there? And we don't have to write people off when they don't show up in a way that is important for us. I think the first step, if we do deem those people as safe and generally so I hope that this live was somewhat informative, and feel free to DM me questions at Embrace Therapy Insta if you have any follow-up questions, or you could send your questions to OKclarity. I am still taking my social media break, but I will see them before the next live. Thank you everyone for joining tonight, and until next time, have a great night.